Right. Thank you so much, Brendan, for being on our show today.
Thanks for having me.
So we're just going to dive right in, and I'd love to hear about this project that you started, called the Humanum Project, and like how did it start? What was your inspiration for kind of beginning it, and just kind of a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I encountered the theology of the body, John Paul II's great teaching on what it means to be human in 2017 changed my life, where I felt called and compelled to share it with the world. So for the past 7 years, I've been kind of on the side giving talks and then started to lead retreats on theology of the body. And then last year, I was teaching a little bit at a high school and I wasn't going to be coming back to teach. And I had kind of made a decision. Maybe I should try to go at this full time of educating and informing youth and young adults on what it means to be human. And I was discerning it, praying about it. And my cousin, who I live with, we live with another guy, but my cousin Connor McCauley, he helped start Humanum Project with me. And he was like, "Hey, Brendan, if you want to go full time at this, like, I'm down to start something with you." And so really I wouldn't, if it was just by myself, that would have been really hard.
Mhm.
But he said, "I'll help start it with you." So that's kind of the birth of it. But really we saw a need in the culture. We looked around and like there's not a whole lot of young people devoting full-time mission work or ministry work to promoting the dignity of the human person and theology of the body. And we just felt a call. We want to speak into the culture on identity and sexuality
Mhm.
because that's just where the crisis is of our times. And so that's kind of the birth of Humanum Project, if you will. And we're just over a year.
Wow, that's amazing. And did
Yeah.
you have anything like in particular that you were like, well, we need this? Like, I think it's important to note that you are, you're young and you have a lot of like Christopher Wests and Jason Everett and all those, but like it's good to see you as an example for. And so, have you had any experiences with people that were just like, okay, actually, this is super needed?
Yeah. And I think, I don't know if you know this, but I'm also the youth speaker for the Theology of the Body Institute. And so I do work with them as well. But not, yeah, not, there's a difference with a young person,
Mhm.
particularly speaking to the youth or college students, at a high school or something. Jason Everett and Christopher West, I mean, obviously they're phenomenal,
Yeah.
but I'm just turned 28 recently, and I think being young, there's just a relatability for the youth. And yeah, we're starting to see more requests of just like, hey, can you come do a retreat or just a presentation?
Mhm.
There's such a big need. There's such a
Mhm.
big need.
Mhm. And what would you say? So let's say someone hasn't heard of the theology of the body and they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
What does that mean? How would you describe it?
yeah,
And John Paul
yeah.
II. Yeah.
Yes, great question. The basic, what is theology of the body?
Yeah.
So there's one answer is it's just a teaching the Pope delivered from 1979 to 1984, a catechesis, 129 audience addresses to the world on what it means to be human, a total vision of man. It was really in response to Humanae Vitae, Pope Paul VI encyclical, talking about the nature of contraception as being immoral according to natural law. And in that encyclical, Pope Paul VI said we need a total vision of man in order to address properly questions regarding human life. And John Paul II, in his Theology of the Body, said, I'm basically taking up that task of bringing to light a total vision of man. Where did we come from? What's our origin story? What's our history? Wounded, original sin, but yet redeemed in Jesus Christ. And what's our final destiny? Where are we going? So it's a total vision of man. It's a adequate anthropology, if you will. So that's kind of one more, maybe more intellectual or answer to what it is. But at the end of the day, theology of the body is the word made flesh. It's the mystery of Christmas. It's the mystery of Christianity. And it's the fact that we're made in God's image and likeness as male and female. So the body, if we're Christian, we believe that the body of Christ reveals the invisible mystery of God.
Mhm.
The body reveals theology, God.
Mhm.
So that's kind of a short answer, but in one aspect, it's a teaching the Pope gave. Another aspect is it's Christianity 101 because it was the fact that the word of God became flesh. Theology enters the body.
Mm.
So yeah,
That's
but
it.
yeah. So it's a lot because a lot of people are like, oh, theology of the body, like never heard of it, or
Right.
it's just a teaching on like chastity and sexuality, and it's like it sheds light onto sexuality and chastity, but fundamentally, it's what does it mean to be human,
Mhm.
and it sheds light onto the whole universe of who God is, who we are. And I'm not going to go into the whole story, but I spoke to an agnostic about theology of the body, and they're just like, never heard of that. What the heck is that? I'm not religious. And I posed a question to her, what would the world be like if we all looked at one another the way in which we look at a sunset? Because the theology of the body reveals the human person is the crown made in God's image and likeness and is the most beautiful.
Mhm.
And she's like, whoa, everything would be different if we all looked at one another in that way.
Mhm.
And that's what John Paul II, particularly, he brings this personalism. He really reflects on the interiority of the person and our experience. And if we ask ourselves honestly, like we want to be seen as good, beautiful, worthy, but
Mhm.
so often we don't. And that's not the fact remains, the truth remains, we're the crown of all creation,
Mhm.
an icon of the mystery of God. But our hearts, our vision has been blurred. And the whole redemption story is Christ comes in to grant us purity of heart. Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. So as we go on that journey of inner healing, entering redemption, we might begin to see images of God revealed through the human body, because that's the truth. But um, yeah, so
It's kind of a not difficult, I mean, not difficult road, but just it is very complex. I think people tend to simplify things in culture and society and just kind of looking into you as a man or as a woman. It's just they're very complicated, but then also they try to simplify like the complexities of God's beauty and design.
yeah,
Um, and
totally.
I'm curious if in the midst of this project, in the midst of just even discussing with people that were there any like shocks or surprises or things that when you're discussing this theology of the body with high schoolers or college students that they come up to you and they're like, I had no idea about this. Like, that's
Oh
incredible.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's kind of shocking like how many people like don't actually know about it, or they've heard I've heard the same theology of the body, but I've had a bad experience of it. So this is not a high schooler, but this 58-year-old woman was at a talk I was giving to college students, but I gave it at her house and she wanted to be there and listen in. And afterwards, she just stood up and told everyone, she's like, I'm 58 years old, and this is the first time I'm hearing that my body is good and has a dignity. And
Mhm.
she said when she was a freshman in high school at an all women's high school, she's like, we learn about theology of the body, Catholic sex ed. And she's like, a priest walks in to teach us. And the very first thing out of his mouth is, ladies, it is all your fault if you get the boys excited. It's all your fault. And she's telling me this. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And she's like, for my whole life, I've just been ashamed and felt guilty of my body,
Mhm.
that I just got to cover it up because it's somehow shameful, which is just so wounding and such a lie. And she said, it was just powerful, but she's just like, Brendan, thank you because you're helping me to forgive that priest and to realize my true dignity.
Mhm.
So that was powerful. But often with high schoolers, I went to in California. It was a Catholic high school, but has had more of a public feel.
Mhm.
Maybe more Catholic by name, but interiorly the teacher students not Catholic. And I gave a presentation on chastity, the virtue of how to love rightly in and through our bodies. And I asked some of the students afterwards that were coming up to me, like, have you guys ever heard of this teaching, theology of the body? And they're like, no, but this is changing how I view what it means to be a man or what it means to be a woman and what love is.
Mhm.
And so just like small comments like that, that it's just so hopeful because they're hungry for it. I mean, just naturally we hunger for intimacy and love, but we don't know like how to find it. And our culture is just holding out a totally different message that doesn't satisfy. And so when they hear it, it like connects the dots in their hearts, and it's like, oh wow, this is what I want, and this is what I'm made for.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. I want to go back to that woman, that the 58-year-old woman, because
yeah,
there's this thing called like the purity culture.
yeah, yeah.
I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. Like, how has that affected the, even within the Catholic community, I think, especially in the Catholic community, of this idea that, sex is evil and all these things that you have to protect or hide yourself completely. Has that has that caused a lot of damage? I mean, within, the community, and actually caused a lot of misunderstanding with what the theology of the body truly is.
Yeah, it's I think a lot of people have a lot of good, strong Catholics wanting to practice, wanting to do the Lord's will. There might be a tendency of either scrupulosity or just fear, where they're living their life out of fear when it comes to dating, relationships. It's almost like I have to do everything perfectly and right. And if I don't, then, well, then I'm not enough or I'm not good enough. And then, so it's living out of more of a self-reliant fear rather than just authentic freedom. And I mean, I bet you see this in your area. I'm seeing this all around the country, particularly with young adults, is the dating culture is struggling.
Yeah.
It's just struggling. I mean, everyone knows, okay, the marriage rate is dropping, divorce is, still high.
Mhm.
Where it's just there's a crisis of relationships, what it means to be a good man or a good woman, you know, and but I think we can have that tendency. Some will just rebel and just say, I'm going to just go after, say, the hookup culture, or just like the teachings of the church, I'm just going to throw out because they're just impossible to live. But
Mhm.
then you see another side where it's more of self-reliant fear, scrupulous, like I have to be perfect. And well, now you're not showing your true self
Mhm.
and living in freedom. And well, you're just not going to be free and you're not going to be happy.
Mhm. Mm. Yeah. Wow.
What do you see? Yeah, what are you seeing? Sorry if
Yeah.
I don't
No,
mean to
it's
ask you the
I think
questions,
you hit
but
it right on the head with the perfectionism, the scrupulosity, this is how it has to be, which it's an interesting, um it's very interesting to see or to consider, like, where's that all rooted. And I think it is, yeah, the idea that maybe we look too deeply into, yeah, this obviously the body is good, the body is beautiful. The way that we express our love is beautiful. Um, but I think that sometimes maybe, people, yeah, are living in fear. I think you hit it right on the head. I think
yeah.
that's um
Yeah. And there needs to be like a retraining of our minds, like of our psychology, of our just our own formation. There needs to be a retraining of it because for most of us growing up in our pornographic culture, or the sense of fear where mom and dad say to the kids, cover your eyes if you're watching this show, cover your eyes. Let's not talk about it.
Mhm.
There could be years and years and years of just shame, confusion, fear. Well, now you then hear the theology of the body for the first time about, wait, my body is good and holy and sacred and deserves to be honored. And wow, it's amazing. And God created sex and sexual pleasure. He said, behold, it's good, that there's an order to his intention. You learn all this for the first time.
Mhm.
Well, you got to soak that in for months and years
Mhm.
to kind of level out, so to speak, the other 10 years of your life that you've been malformed, sadly,
Mhm.
because of our culture.
Mhm.
And then we just, we got to be patient with ourselves. We got to be compassionate and love ourselves in the midst of that journey of trying to be reformed
Mhm.
and healed.
Mhm.
So I'll say that as well.
No, that's true. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on, so you had mentioned like parents like, oh, cover your eyes, children, which is a good in a sense. Like I get that, protecting the innocence of your children. Um, and you speak to high schoolers and college kids. Do you have any suggestions for parents who might resort to that immediate fear of just like, obviously protect your children, but in what ways can the discussion occur to where they are not just foreign to this idea of theology of the body when they get to college or high school, when it somewhat can be sometimes too late, not, too late in the sense of, you said it takes a lot of time to kind of retrain yourself. So how can parents help their children to see the dignity of the human person at a young age?
Yeah. Great question. And that is the question I'm hearing from parents over and over. Like, how do I teach this? How do I show this to my kids? So, in regards to the cover your eyes, like you said, good. That's a good thing to tell your kids if something's popping up, cover your eyes. But like me with my parents, in my mind, I'm thinking, why?
Mhm.
Why? Because there's something in me that's attracted to this thing on the screen.
Mhm.
I may not know why it is attractive, but there's something attracting me. Cover your eyes. Okay. Why?
Mhm.
If they don't get an answer to the why, they're going to be confused and they're
Mhm.
going to just go after what just their maybe initial attractions are wanting. And so often I think we hear the negative side of chastity, don't do this, don't do this. We need to hear more of the positive. You
Mhm.
know, this is who you are and this is what you deserve. This is how good you are. This is how delightful you are.
Mhm.
And the more we can bring to light the beauty and dignity of the other, or what dating's all about, or what marriage is all about, the more we hear the positive, the more we'll be repulsed by, say, sin or anything that might be negative or against God's plan of love.
Mhm.
So, but very, very practically, the best way you can teach your kids, and again, I'm not a parent, so I'm just telling you based off of how I was raised, but also what I'm seeing. Okay, books, good movies, having them go on retreats or camps and all that, like those are great. But I think the number one way you can help people really experience and know the dignity of the human person is by showing them how much they're loved through the way you see them, the way you embrace them, the way you tell them, I love you.
Mhm.
That's a good question. For parents, it's like, do you tell your kids honestly with intention, I love you?
Mhm.
You know, within my home, my dad didn't as much.
Mhm.
And it was almost like you can't be emotional or you can't be vulnerable. And he's worked on that a lot,
Mhm.
and we've gotten closer together. But I think and then also loving each other, spouses, because the child literally is the spouse's love made flesh.
Mhm.
Like literally, the child is their love made flesh. So they can point to their love and say, that child right there is an expression of our love.
Mhm.
And so there's actually psychologists that have done studies that show a child that comes from a divorced home will look within himself and feel this rupture or this divorce because their true identity is the spouse's love. And so, but then they show when spouses delight in one another, when the child sees mom and dad love one another, care for one another, it reveals to them who they are more and how loved they are. And so I think that day in and day out, if parents are day in and day out kissing them goodnight at the dinner table, these small moments of expressing authentic love, they'll look at the culture and they'll be repulsed by it. And they
Mhm.
say, I know what love is. I
Mhm.
truly do because I've experienced it.
Mhm. Mhm. That's a really solid point. Yeah, it's the foundations in the home. It's those little moments. I think that theology of the body is such a vast kind of concept, but also I think that just keeping it simple and reminding, helping parents realize that it is a very simple thing of just being, taking the time to be affectionate with your spouse, taking the time to be affectionate with your children. Um,
Mhm.
that's a very, yeah,
Yeah.
very point.
And particularly with children and high schoolers, like, middle schooler and high schoolers, how do you give them this theology of the body? Honestly, I've tried to teach high schoolers kind of this high level theology of the body, which John Paul II gives us. I mean, this stuff is like master's level. Like it's not for the average reader.
Yeah.
And if you try to just share with them that message, it goes right over their head. And then they say theology of the body is boring.
Mm.
So how like Jason Everett has done it, how I've learned to do it, particularly with youth, if you're like a catechist or a teacher or even a parent, is stories.
Mhm.
Honestly, like it's all stories and it's sharing your personal story, your personal journey. That's what connects with them.
Mhm.
The high level theology of the sacramentality of marriage is a reflection of Christ's love for his church, and Trinitarian love, spousal love's an image of Trinitarian love. What the heck does that even mean? Theology body is boring.
Yeah.
Where they're at, they just need stories,
Mhm.
and that's how, I mean, even us adults, we need
Mhm.
stories. That's how Jesus taught, in parables and story. It's what makes life beautiful as well, and makes life worth living. It's like living is like we're part of an adventure, this grand story that we want to be a part of. And so that's also a good way to connect with youth.
Yeah, no, you think it's such a simple thing. You don't think about that idea, but whenever yeah, speaking about stories is more relatable, I think, and then they feel more confident and comfortable
Yeah.
um with kind of experiencing those feelings or those things that you have shared with them.
Yeah.
Um,
And I typically, kind of one last point about this.
go for it. Yeah.
I When it comes to youth,
Hmm.
I typically talk about the difference between loving and using.
Hmm.
Love is to will the good for another person. It's to be a sincere gift of self for the good of others. And using is treating people as objects for your own selfish gratification. And I tell stories to get at that point because I think in middle school and high school, or just even addressing the problem of pornography and how it degrades the human person, because the human person, you know, is an image of God. They need to hear things to where they can at least say, that's good and that's wrong. You
Hmm.
know, that's the right way, that's the wrong way.
Hmm.
And then they at least can now go on the journey. Okay, how do I begin to live this right way? But
Hmm.
they first need to hear something to where it's like, okay, whoa, I get it. That's wrong,
Hmm.
and this is right.
Hmm.
And so I think talking about the difference of loving others and using others
Yeah.
for youth is a good way to start.
Based on your own personal experience, have you um kind of recognized so how with how you present and with how you share the theology of the body, is it something that, when you were growing up, you wish like someone would have talked to you in the same way, or did you have that and you're just kind of more inspired to be that for others?
Good question. That's actually something I probably should reflect on more. I think both. Like what I tell when give talks, I say, what I learned in the home was cover your eyes. And I said, why, mom and dad? And didn't really get an answer.
Mhm.
Well, my parents actually are pretty strong Catholics involved in the church. Like they actually probably did tell me the why, but
Mhm.
I just didn't. It went through one ear, shot out the other. I
Mhm.
was I was really well formed. Like I really was, but went to a public high school, went off to college, joined a fraternity, like dabbled in what the world had to offer.
Mhm.
And it's hard to escape from that. So you're getting pulls from both direction.
Mhm.
And so I can't recall a lot of different stories or events where mentors or people or my parents really poured into my life in regards to loving rightly, dating rightly, but I know they did. I
Mhm.
know they did.
Mhm.
Um, so there's that. Yeah, so I really do think I did, but I just can't recall all the different moments or stories.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was really with Christopher West when I was 21 years old,
Mhm.
where it was brought to light. I mean, it was a 30-hour course. It wasn't just a 1 hour talk at a youth group where I'm probably not even paying attention because I'm crazy as a little kid. But it was really Christopher West. I mean, and he's been a mentor of mine. And at that moment, it was just like it all connected the dots. And it's like, this is the truth. And I have to share it with others. But
Mhm.
I don't, does that answer your question kind of?
Yeah. Yes, no, it does. Yeah, no. And I'm trying to like kind of flesh this out a little more for our audience because I think our parents have, the desire to bring this to their children and to help inform them of the dignity of their bodies. But then you have this side of the children who, maybe the parents have their perspective of how they do things, and then just kind of looking at, okay, well, what does that mean for their child and how's their child responding to it? And I think I used to be a teacher, and the idea of children learn differently. Like you have the children that can learn visually, auditorily, or, like kinesthetics,
Yeah.
um, and presenting this information, which is a very profound information, in just different ways to help. And so as I continue to think and talk to you about this, I do wonder with, let's say, some high schoolers that you've talked to or college kids, or even in your own experience, where let's say they just haven't known their dignity, they haven't known this aspect of them, that they're children of God, that they have this innate dignity, and that their body is beautiful. And so they've lived a certain way, or they've chosen kind of the world over God. When they hear this message of, that you are loved and that you have this beauty about you, that's the culture is telling you it looks one way. Is it hard for those kids or the adults or anyone you've kind of come, is it hard for them to kind of accept it and then continue to like rewrite? Or is it like a whoosh, yeah, like that feels great. I can just based on your experience, I guess.
Yeah, I think both, in the sense that some people, they'll hear it for the first time, and really, when I reflect on my encounter with theology of the body,
Mhm.
the basic message is this is who you are, and who you are as you are beloved.
Mhm.
And for me, it's sunk in where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm loved. Like I have an infinite value. I'm good. Like I should be marveled at, like, because this is who I am. And it was healing because, well, I've been cheated on, I've been rejected, I've been betrayed. All of these wounds, the evil one goes after our identity. You're not enough. You got to perform perfectly. You have to be perfect, and then you'll finally be wanted. And we live out of wounds, and it doesn't give us joy. And so there's some people that hear this, just the simple basic message of the gospel, you're loved, and they'll just start bawling their eyes out. It's like it's connecting, it's healing. But for some, they just have to they need to be patient with themselves, and parents or teachers need to be patient with them, because there might be great wounds where there is a 10-foot wall of brick, and no saying of I love you or a hug is going to get through that brick. They need to be willing to let that big wall come down, you know? And so, yeah. So, yeah, some people are like, well, I don't know if I'm loved because my whole 10-year, 20-year, 30-year experience says I'm not, because I can't trust anyone because everyone betrays me, you know? And that's where you just be compassionate towards these people, compassionate to suffer with, compassion. And it's like just being with these people and walking with these people. Um, so it's really a discernment of, what does this person need, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
that's great.
so, yeah, like this is a little separate side example, but when it comes to even just parents with their own kids, we have close family friends, and they made some mistakes with their son in high school with trying to bring this theology of the body and the virtue of chastity, where he was having sex with his girlfriend. They're Catholic family. And the mom said to them, all right, you two need to come into the living room and watch Jason Everett. So no joke. The parents said, yeah, you, not for kind of forcefully, just like, you need to do this. Sat him down, and they watched Jason Everett on the TV give like a 20-minute talk on chastity. But he recalls, I felt kind of forced to do this. And after that, kind of started to rebel even more. Um, and that's when our freedom is taken from us. We'll just, even if it's a good message, well, no, like we need to have our freedom. And even John Paul II talks about just the freedom, like freedom is necessary for love, to receive love and to give love. And he says something to the effect of, it is better to freely do something wrong than it is to be forced and controlled to do good.
Yeah.
That at the end of the day, as human persons, we need free will to choose this good. And if we're being forced, you know, kids instinctively know if mom and dad are being overprotective,
Mm.
you know, there's got to be a balance, and that's a hard balance. But we first need freedom
Mm.
before we can love and be loved.
Yeah, I love that. I think freedom is the most underrated virtue, one of the most underrated
Yeah.
virtues. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a very, thank you for sharing that story too. I think that's important to remember. It's like, it's not, yeah, especially in high school and like college when you're already fighting for independence as a teenager. Um, I'm curious, so for Humanum Project, what are kind of what's your vision for how this will help our generation and our culture
Yeah.
within the Catholic youth or even within Christian youth and just above and beyond that?
Totally. Yeah. So just a little note about Humanum Project. It means human in Latin, and we educate, form youth and young adults on what it means to be human, our identity, sexuality, relationships, all of those topics, mainly through talks and retreats and training workshops. But we want, we're really wanting Humanum Project to kind of be a movement to change culture at its roots, identity and sexuality.
Mhm.
You know, this theology of the body, which is what it means to be human, is what is needed in our times. Without a doubt, it's the crisis of identity. I mean, there was a new study a couple years ago done on high schoolers, a few thousand of them who identify under the umbrella LGBTQ, and it was like 25% from this study. It's it's blowing up this gender ideology that you can be whoever you want to be. And so the root of culture, the word culture actually means a society's expression of who they think they are before God. So the root of culture, if we want to change culture, we need to have a proper vision of identity,
Mm.
because morality, how we behave, how we act, flows out of a belief of who we think we are. And so that's what Humanum Project is all about, is going after the cell or the nucleus of culture, identity. And our goal, what we tell people when we offer retreats or we go to college campuses, is we're here to change culture around sexuality.
Mm.
So, if we want to change the culture about marriage, love, dating, we need a proper vision of who we are.
Mm.
And so hopefully, I mean, we're a small organization, it's just me and then my cousin's part-time, but hopefully we can grow, because we truly believe that this is what our society needs.
Mhm.
And I know, and a lot of people are looking around like, I got to be silent, because if I come out and say what I believe about Christianity, like I'll just be canceled or hated and lose friends, lose family.
Mhm.
But we can't be silent. We can't be silent when it comes to truth, because truth sets us free.
Yeah.
And so our hope is that we can help be an instrument of God's grace when it comes to healing of sexuality, relationships, and so we'll see. We'll see where the Lord takes us, but we want to help change culture.
Yes, and it's so needed, and actually it's so great that you're doing it. How can, let's say, how can someone find you or to like request that you come to their campus or give a talk or give a retreat? How do they might they be able to do that?
Yeah, so humanumproject.org is the website. So you can just contact us on there. It also on our website shows all the different offerings, the different topics that we can offer.
Mhm.
A good way to just follow us on, if you want to stay formed and formed
Mhm.
on like theology of the body, applying it to youth and young adults. We have a lot of videos on our YouTube channel. It's just Humanum Project. We're on all the social medias, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But we also offer free virtual courses, actually. So every other month, we offer a three-part series on a given topic. So people can check us out on that if they want to just themselves be formed. But in regards to having us come in for a retreat, parish mission, just to talk or presentation,
Mm.
yeah, our website's the best place to go.
Perfect. That's excellent. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah, yeah, of
One
course.
last question for you. And this one we kind of cut, but we do like a montage at the end or whatever. But it's
Okay.
how has the Blessed Mother been a mother to you?
Good question. Yeah, good question. How's the Blessed Mother been a mother to me? Well, just last night this is me being vulnerable, but I as a kid loved Tarzan the movie. And you're thinking, what does Tarzan have to do with the Blessed Mother? Well, let me tell you. So in the movie Tarzan, there is a song,
Mm.
right? The song that the mom sings to, hush, my child, it'll be all right. You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
best song.
Okay. Yeah, that's the song. That's the song. Last night, and it pops in my mind here and there because it's a song that spoke to me when I was a kid. Um, and sometime when I experience any fear or anxiety, sometimes that song will just pop in and I hear Mary singing to me. And there's one part of my heart that's like, grow up, Brendan. Like, you're a man now. You're not a boy. You're not supposed to experience fear or be scared or have a mommy or something like that. But it's, at the end of the day, I'm still a son. I'm a son of the Father in a mysterious way. I'm a son of Mary, mother. And I'm a fragile human being that needs love, that needs care, that needs nurturing. And that it's interesting. That song, it just goes so deep in my heart when it talks about just motherly care. But I also, so I'll say that. I mean, she's just the icon of perfect motherhood and care that I don't need to be afraid to go to and just be embraced or held or, you know, but she's also been an icon of what a woman is meant to be,
Mhm.
like a perfectly beautiful woman. So it's like she's helped me say, Brendan, I think you shouldn't be attracted to these parts within a woman,
Mhm.
or that might be a disordered attraction within you. And she's kind of brought to light what I should be attracted to,
Mhm.
in a woman.
Mhm.
And that's also been just very healing.
Mhm.
Um, so that's what I'd say. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
great. Thank you.
yeah,
And thank you so much for being on the show today. We're
yeah,
so lucky and we wish you the best of luck with this project. I think it's going to do really beautiful things for our youth and for the culture.
yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.